if you a whole day, you daven, you learn, you go mitzvah, and all night you dance, so what happens to you? You become either holy or crazy, or a combination thereof. Simchas is an interesting experience. And I will say, I was 15 when they ever spoke about it, the first time. It was 43 years ago. Tafshin Mem Aleph, 42 years ago. 43 years ago, not Pei Daled, right? 43 years ago. I was a little boy, had a lot of energy. And when I was a kid growing up, Sukkot was like Pesach. There was nothing happening here. There was no Farbrengen at all. There was a rally for kids, which, I mean, sometimes they didn't even let us in. If it was only for the Farbrengen 1 year for the public school church, they didn't even let us in. So Sukkot was a boring Yom Tov from a Hasidic perspective. And if for people who want to go to whatever it is, I don't know what goes on now, but I would imagine that there's a lot more from entertainment venues for Chalamoyed, Pesach, and Sukkot. Everybody's got something going on. But then the Rebbe introduced Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and it became non-stop, whole night. Night after night after night, we danced. And Sukkot went from being a boring Yom Tov to being a Yom Tov where you Pasha didn't sleep for a week. I didn't remember this myself, but a woman told it to me, that she remembers it, and when she told it to me, I remembered it as well. When the Rebbe spoke about it in the beginning, the Rebbe never spoke about dancing in the streets. The Rebbe just spoke about dancing. It was spontaneous. The Chassidim themselves, the reaction to Simchas HaShoeva was exciting. And I think one of the reasons Simchas Beis HaShoeva had the power that it had, and I think this will give you a little bit of a historical context, it was 3 years since Lamed Ches. It was 3 years since the heart attack. The whole of Lamed Ches, the whole of Lamed Tes, the whole of Mem. And the truth is that the first couple of years the Rebbe watched his health. The Rebbe was limited in what he did. From Mem Aleph, the Rebbe and everybody else forgot that the Rebbe had a heart attack, you know. So many people came for that Tishrei, Mem Aleph. Some people will say that it was the busiest Tishrei ever, including Shnas Hakel, 7 years later, Tafshin Mem Ches. Crown Heights was teeming with people. And when the Rebbe started speaking about the dancing, we walked out into the street and we danced. And nobody stopped us. I mean, it's Brooklyn. Whoever stopped you from doing anything in Brooklyn, right? So in the beginning, I don't know if it was the first night or the second night, but I remember this. We were dancing from President in Albany till President in Brooklyn, down Brooklyn to Montgomery, then from Montgomery in Brooklyn to Montgomery in Albany and back up again. And the circle was closed. Do you know how many people that is? It's 4 big blocks and 6 small blocks. You know how many people that is? And the ring was closed. There was enough people dancing that there was no spaces. And when the cops gave us Montgomery and Kingston, they were not doing us a favor, they were doing themselves a favor. They wanted Albany and Brooklyn back, you understand? There's buses on Brooklyn and Albany. So they gave, if you want to know why they were so the whole neighborhood, 3 blocks, 3 avenues. So here you can have Montgomery and Kingston. And in those days, I mean, even now, we danced from Montgomery till Crown with just so many people. And in the beginning, we were the only ones who had Simcha Beis HaShoeva, so they came from everywhere. It was packed. And we mamish danced all night till the morning. And then, this is a Bachar experience. At 6 o'clock in the morning, you ran to 770. The mikveh opened already, what's called the Karsira mikveh, which no longer exists. So you danced all night, you went to Karsira mikveh, and back to 770, you sat in the sukkah, and if you were lucky, you fell asleep, you know. So it's a Yom Tov. The Rebbe's lulav came around 7:30, 7:45. Chalamoy, the Rebbe's lulav came around 9 o'clock, 9:15. So if you danced all night and you went to the mikveh and you fell off in the sukkah, you were the first ones in line to get the Rebbe's lulav. So you danced all night, you went to the mikveh. I remember we used to have Farbrengens, early morning Farbrengens, after dancing all night. You're so hyper, you couldn't even sleep. You were exhausted, you have no idea how tired you were. So you danced again, you Farbrenged a little bit. Then when the Rebbe's lulav would come, Rabbi Harley would come, Allah Shalom, and you shook the Rebbe's lulav, and went on to the Shachris. I remember literally sleeping in Milish Manesre because you were so tired. And then if you were really crazy, you went to Mitzvah after davening. And then at night, same story. A nacht, nach a nacht, nach a nacht. It was I mean, the boys do it today. It was unbelievable. And the Rebbe gave us a gift. Simchas, if you look at it as an outsider, we're nuts. Mamish, this is... I mean, Lubavitch had a lot of crazy stuff. This is one of the craziest. But if you participate... the girls cannot participate the way the boys do, unfortunately. I think it's the holiest experience of my life. When you go to Simchas and you dance, yeah? So the first few minutes, you can't believe how sweated up, how excited everybody is. You literally forget about yourself. The biggest balgaiva, the coldest fish, if you go around that circle long enough, you're not going fast. You're not jumping up and dancing. You're just going around and around. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You literally forget about yourself and you become a part of it. And at some point, I don't know if there's an exception to the rule, you become a part of a joy that's bigger than yourself. Really. You become so sameach that you go out of yourself. And you know, you guys are about your girls. You learn a little chassidus, you know, about bittul. This is the best word to bittul right here, the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. It's incredible. It's such a gift. It's such a matana. You dance and 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 you mamish forget yourself. You forget your brain and you forget your worries and you forget your self-importance. And 6 o'clock comes and the cops push you off the street. I hate when they push you, so I don't want them to touch me. I go way ahead of them. I don't like that. I'll go away 1 minute before. I don't need them to help me off the street. When you go to the mikveh at 6:15 and you're so tired, there's a feeling of kedusha. You really, you know what ruchnius is. That's what Simchas Beis HaShoeva is. It's real. It's special. But I want to talk about this kinderlach today. This year is 50 years since the Yom Kippur War. I was 8 during the Yom Kippur War, and I don't think I'm alone. I think the whole Lubavitch. To you, this is history. For me, it's my childhood. For people a little older than me, it's their bocherim memories. For people a lot older than me, they were, you're right, they were married people around the Rebbe. And I decided I want to start this Farbrengen, at least for a while, to share with you. They're not really my memories, because I don't have a lot of memories. Some of the sentiment that apparently revolved around the Yom Kippur War and the Rebbe, I think it's a good topic. I think it's good to talk about, because it's not just a story, it's not just history, it's the Rebbe. It's very, very much the Rebbe. The way the Rebbe dealt with the Yom Kippur War is so much the Rebbe, and it has a lot of relevance to us as Lubavitcher Chassidim today, and I think it's a good way to start this Farbrengen. So again, I'm going to share with you most of what I'm going to tell you. I heard from people who I read. I don't remember. I have certain memories. And I just want to tell you that as an aside, I teach Chassidus for a living. I think you know that. I teach Chassidus for a living. One of the things that I do is I teach my modern from the Rebbe online. And I sit in my basement in a room that's 20 degrees above what's going on outside. Then I record. I talk to my camera. And I fall asleep, and I get up, and I continue, and I fall asleep, and I get up, and I continue. I'm learning the Maimorim of Lamadal. I'm learning the Maimorim of that Tishrei now. And it's making it very alive for me. The Yom Kippur War lasted, I think, 19 or 20 days. It started Shabbos. It ended a Thursday. If it had lasted till that Shabbos, it would have been a whole 3 weeks. The last 20 days in Tishrei. The Rebbe said 7 Maimorim. 7 Maimorim in those 20 days, 21 days. It's unbelievable. And you could feel in the Maimorim that the Rebbe is not just saying Chassidus, the Rebbe is trying to do something. These Maimorim were not just Maimorim, the Rebbe was trying to do something with this Torah, with this Chassidus. I want to start this Farbrengen with some thoughts in the 6th day, 7th Yom Kippur. And by the way, you're free to interrupt me with a question. This is not a monologue, even though it is. I don't deal with questions very well, but you can try if you're not afraid of me. If you're not afraid of me, you can ask questions. I'll try to my best to answer you. The first thing you have to understand about the Yom Kippur War is that the Yom Kippur War should never have happened. It should never have happened. And like a good, brainwashed, closed-minded Lubavitcher, I will say, and it is the truth, if they had only listened to the Rebbe, if they had only listened to the Rebbe, the 6 Day War was exactly 7 years before. 6 Day was also Hakel, right? Chav Zayin was Hakel, and Lamadal was Hakel. Both wars were on year Shnas Hakel. The 6 Day War was such a ness. Wow, it was a ness. And people were afraid. But the 6 Day War, people were really afraid what was going to be. The Rebbe was the only Gadol Yisrael who predicted a big miracle. The Rebbe was the only one who said, don't leave Israel, it's a safe place, and Hashem is going to make big nisim. And the miracles of the 6 Day War were so unbelievable. It was a Mashiach moment. It was mamish a Mashiach moment. The Rebbe said that. The 6 Day War was an unbelievable moment. What was the unique feature of the 6 Day War on a practical level? The unique feature on a practical level was that we started it. They were planning a war, and we didn't wait for them to start. The war was over before we destroyed all the airplanes on the ground. The airplanes didn't even take off, you understand? After the 6 Day War, we took the whole Sinai, a very big piece of territory. And there's a lot of details which, first of all, I don't know. Second of all, it may sound wrong, but they're kind of technical and boring. The bottom line is the Israeli military took a certain position and the Rebbe criticized it publicly, again and again and again. There's a book that's called Bossi V'Einish. It's the title of the book. It's a big fat book. I don't know if it's still available, but maybe it is. Bossi V'Einish are all the Simchas of the Rebbe on Shleibus Haaretz. Why is it called Bossi V'Einish? Because during those few years, between 1970, 71, 72, leading up to the Yom Kippur War, the Rebbe would say, Mamish B'Bchi. He would cry. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Madua Bossi V'Einish, Karasi V'Einin. Why am I coming and there's nobody here? I'm calling, no one's responding. The Rebbe was screaming at the Israeli government that they're making mistakes about how they were handling the situation militarily. There's a combination of factors. There was a huge gaiva. If you were alive between the 6 Day War and the Yom Kippur War, man, Jews felt powerful. The Yom Kippur War was we won the war, but the cost of that war was so painful. Yidden were no longer invincible. The 6 Day War was wow. It made Yidden so proud all over the world, and the Rebbe felt that the Israelis, so there was overconfidence, there was a gaiva, yeah? When it came to the Yom Kippur War, the simple fact of the matter is that there was enormous political pressure against Israel not to start the next war. Everybody knew there was going to be a war, everybody. And if Israel starts the Yom Kippur War, as they saw the 6 Day War, if the Egyptians knew, all Israel has to do was mobilize, all they have to do. There probably wouldn't even have been a war. And there was a war, which we Dafka didn't start. We allowed the Egyptians and the Syrians to start. What happened? All of our frontline soldiers were massacred. They were sitting ducks. They were karbonis. Not karbonis of a war, karbonis of politicians. Karbonis of people who said it's very not good that America should say we're not nice people, because hundreds of Israelis, hundreds of boys were killed in the first couple of days. They went on both sides, shh, and they stopped for no reason. And it was an S. And then we were able to mobilize and we pushed them back. The miracles of the Yom Kippur War were greater than the miracles of the 6 Day War because we handled it so poorly. Because politically we were so unprepared for that war. You needed a bigger nest. 20 Israeli tanks fought off like 200 or 300 Syrian tanks and won. How do you explain that? They won. Nisim Goyim, unbelievable Nisim. And the Rebbe said in one of the Simchas, you don't have to make a Nisim every day. Sometimes it could be Derech HaTeva also. Nesses for special occasions. So the Rebbe, who at that point had the ear of everybody in Israel, everybody knew that the Rebbe knows what's going on, he understands what's going on, and he cares. He cares. And they didn't listen to him. And when that war started, the Rebbe was so supportive of it. There was not for a split second in the Rebbe's thinking or actions, you didn't listen to me? Now pay. The Rebbe didn't have that in his DNA. It's, you know what it means? Ain't teikin ala over? Ain't never cry over spilled milk. Ain't teikin over. There's a video where one of Arak Sharon's people comes to them by dollars. And he tells the Rebbe that Arak Sharon, you're talking now 35 years ago, Arik Sharon is writing a biography, autobiography, and in his book, he's admitting that the Rebbe was right and the Israeli military was wrong about the Yom Kippur War. And he was taking this up as a compliment. And the Rebbe doesn't hesitate. He says, that's spilled milk. It's about what's going to happen today, tomorrow. I was right then. Why aren't you listening to me now? In other words, they wanted to tell him, Rebbe, we're making something nice about you, feel good, publishing a book. It's going to make you look good. And the Rebbe says, what look good? What about today? When that war started, as much as the Rebbe ate himself up about the fact that we didn't listen to him, and the price was so high, we won the Yom Kippur War. And the Egyptians make the parades. To this day. How do you lose a war and make a parade? I mean, leave it to Arabs. But we lost that war because the first, 36, 48 hours, they were pushing it at Israel. It only happened because we let them. We let them. And the morale, the gaiva of Jews, B'chlal, and Yidden and Israel, that between the 6-day war and the Kippur War, were at an all-time high. It was unbelievable. We have not recovered. It's 50 years. We have,
What should have happened?
We should have started it. You don't even have to start, just mobilize. If Israel mobilizes, Egypt doesn't attack. We didn't mobilize. We told the reserves to stay home. It shouldn't look like we're doing anything that could be interpreted. So they attacked borders, big borders. A few soldiers here, a few soldiers here. They were mamish sitting ducks. It was gefetlach. It was so bad. It was terrible. The beginning of the war, I remember as a kid, I was 8. And wherever you went, men was whispering, And you could tell that it wasn't a happy whisper. It was a painful whisper. I'm talking about Chalamayid, which is a week into the war. So my father's walking with me and my brother. My brother's 7. My brother wasn't even 7. I had just turned 8. My brother was about to turn 7. And they would start these conversations and he'd push me away not to listen. And of course, you know how you push a kid away not to listen. So he listens doubly hard. I didn't understand, but I heard about the numbers of people dying. Das habe ich verstanden. But I want to say is, the Rebbe made it his business to help out Yisrael. The fact that a minute before they didn't listen to him, and because that minute before they didn't listen to him, there were this many korbanos, the Rebbe never ever said, okay, now suffer. About anybody, about anything. When we say, how come they didn't listen to the Rebbe, what's the answer to that question? Punkt wie gut machen wir, I don't understand. How could you listen to the Rebbe? You don't understand? You don't understand? I can explain it to you. Take a look in the mirror. I don't understand. How can I listen to the Rebbe? The Rebbe has clear positions on everything, including how we're supposed to live. I don't understand. How could they know the Rebbe knows better than them? It's called Yetzer Hara. It's called pressure, whatever the case is. Hayore v'rach halevov. I don't understand. So the Rebbe told people what to do, and so many people, to listen exactly as the Rebbe wanted is almost impossible. But even to try, But the Rebbe never said, you didn't listen, so don't talk to me. Go ask somebody else. Okay, now listen. That's how he dealt with us. And that's how he dealt with everything and every issue. There was never by the Rebbe holding he couldn't afford it. And the Rebbe sees so clear. And the Rebbe spoke so clear. Private and public. Private and public. The Israeli government knew 2 things. The Rebbe loves them, the Rebbe cares about them, and the Rebbe understands. He understands the military, he understands the politics, he understands the situation. They used to send counselors to ask the Rebbe eitzes. One of the famous stories that was on a Living Torah Gem video was that Arik Sharon wanted to cross the Suez. He wanted to go behind the Egyptian army. And that's how we turned the tide of war. It was a big mess. But he said he's not going without the Rebbe's permission. So they got someone who lived here in New York, an Israeli representative. She come to 770, and they go into the Rebbe. So they come into Sev, said they go into Binyamin Klein. I have to go into the Rebbe. It's an urgent matter. They get to the Muhammad. So Binyamin said to him, the Rebbe, you can't talk to the Rebbe now. You'll see soon how I'm going to say things that sound contradictory. But apparently during the war, the Rebbe was in another world. He was so preoccupied, you couldn't talk to him. He says, I don't know, he can't talk to the Rebbe. He said, I got to go in. And he walked in for 1 minute and came out. He was not allowed to tell people what the Rebbe told him. But the Rebbe said, yeah. Crossed the Suez. They crossed the Suez. They came behind the Egyptian army. And that was one of the big miracles. But you know what that means? That the Israeli army once thing called the Hasidic Rebbe living in America. It gives you an idea how much they knew. how much the Rebbe loves and cares, and how much he understands. Pasha tactily, on the ground. They said the Rebbe didn't talk like a Rebbe, he talked like a general. There's a famous story with Yitzchak Rabin. The reason we know the story was, there's a Yid who lived in South, I think this is the story. A Yid who lived in South Africa, his name was Rabbi Nachman Bernard. He's unfortunately Olav Shalom. He passed away at Yom Kippur, I think. I met him, I was in South Africa a few times. And the Rebbe talked to him, the Rebbe liked him, but talked to him. In other words, the Rebbe used to share things with him, not because they were negated him. The Rebbe, there's times the Rebbe would share things with people, he was one of the people the Rebbe would talk to. So Rabin came to the Rebbe in Lamed Beis, 1972, he didn't want to come. They twisted his arm that he should come to the Rebbe to represent Shazar. Yitzhak Rabin was the ambassador of the Israeli government to Washington. And Yehuda Avner, who's now also Olav Shalom, wanted to get Yitzhak Rabin to come to the Rebbe. So he suggested to Zalman Shazar, who was a Lubavitcher Chassid and the president of the state of Israel, to ask Rabin to represent him to come to the Rebbe. Rabin was really not happy, but he came. But he said, I'm not coming at night, I'm coming in the afternoon, and I don't want to wait. And the Rebbe made him wait. He said in Maskiris. But he went to the Rebbe in the afternoon. And he tells the story that the Rebbe starts talking to him philosophy. And he wasn't impressed. It didn't work for him. He was a good Jew, but he was not frum. And at all. And the Rebbe asks him, Jewish survival is because of Yiddishkeit or because of anti-Semitism? That's a serious question, right? I'm asking you, we live in America. Jewish survival is because of Yiddishkeit, because we love Yitayra Mitzvahs, or because the Goyim hate us and they keep us together? So the Rebbe asked him the question. The first thing that Rebbe asked him was, you're in Washington, do you ever feel like one against the whole world? Hey, Nam Levada Yishkan. He told the Rebbe, no. I'm like everybody else. No? Israel's a country like any other country. The secular Jews convinced themselves that they were a nation like any other, which of course is nonsense, but okay, that's because we drank the Kool-Aid, yeah, if you'll ask them, yeah. But the Rebbe asked him, Jewish survival is because of Jewish tradition or because of anti-Semitism? And the Rebbe says because of both. And what the Rebbe was really telling him is that we go into an age where there's no anti-Semitism. To stay, we need Yiddishkeit to be stronger than in Europe, because it has come entirely from inside of us. That was the conversation. And the Rebbe didn't win him with that. Then after the Rebbe gave him this whole philosophy, the Rebbe started talking to him about the 6-Day War. It was 1972, it was Lamed Beis, a year and a half before the Yom Kippur War. And the Rebbe told him things that made him realize. He walked out of the Rebbe and he said to Yehuda Avner, he knows more than all the 120 people sitting in the Knesset. He'd be far better sitting in the Knesset than all the people. Versteht besser. Military Pashat. Military understands. And they all knew this. They knew this. So wait, so the story was that in that Yechidus, they took out a map and put it on the table and said to him, show me the Israeli defenses that they built to protect them. Israel became 3 times its size. They took the whole Sinai. Unfortunately, we gave it away. But the Sinai was ours. So if you have a bigger territory, a bigger border need more defenses. And they made what was called the Badalev line. The Rebbe thought it was a terrible idea. In other words, a lot of soldiers spread out thinly instead of in a few concentrated places. And all those boys were killed. All of them were killed. So he shows the Rebbe the defenses, and the Rebbe starts asking questions. This is a weakness, this is a weakness, this is a weakness. And the Rebbe understood the military side. So he's answering, and the Rebbe's asking, and he's answering. And he runs out of answers. He tells the Rebbe, Hashem Yazor. So the Rebbe says, I'm talking to you like a general, you're answering me like a Rebbe. But this was the kind of, they knew how much the Rebbe knows and cares. You should know this. Till Nun Beis, people from the Israeli government who needed help about serious issues would come here. Nobody knew. They would go into the Rebbe. They go to the Rebbe's house. The Israeli government, they needed counsel for serious business. The Rebbe's door was open to them, and they knew it and they valued it. Even though, when it came to so many things, they didn't do what he said. Not Shleimus Haaretz, not Mi Yehudi. I mean, all the big issues, they didn't do what he said. But the Rebbe was always there to help. He never ever said, okay, you're not listening to me this. I'm not going to help you with that. The Rebbe was a Rebbe. I tell you what to do, you don't listen. You're still my sheep, and I still got to help you in spite of your foolishness. So the Rebbe, when the Yom Kippur War started, So he made it his business to win the war for them. Beruchnias, kedusha, you know. And the beginning of it is the summer before. My brother and I were little kids. We were in camp, Olateda Day Camp. A whole summer, they're talking about Hevel Shem Bechet. My birthday is in the end of Elul, Chav Hey Elul. So I was still 7, my brother was 6. It's amazing how big we thought we were. We were not kids, we were little kids. 6 and 7. And there were a whole bunch of rallies that summer, many rallies. And the Rebbe tzach gekocht stark in the Mipiyolim v'Yenkim Yisadet Te'ez L'Hashma Seif V'Misnaki. The source of this is a maimah from the Friedrich Rebbe in the year that he was arrested. The Friedrich Rebbe was arrested in Tafresh Pei Zayin 1927, right? You know that. He was arrested Tezvav Sivan. He was allowed to leave his jail Gimel Tammuz, and he was allowed to go home Yud Beis Tammuz, right? You know this, right? Somebody nod, yeah, you know that, yeah. They put him cotton before, 3 months before he was arrested. He went to Moscow, not put him, but put him cotton, and that's where the Vata Tatava comes. Vata Tatava comes from that Maimir. No. V'kibel Ayudim. Reish Yehudim is Tafresh Pei. V'kibel Ayudim. The Friedrich Rebbe's Maimir. V'kibel Ayudim. The Rebbe turned it around and made it Vata Tatava. Because the Friedrich Rebbe's V'kibel Ayudim is based on his father's Maimir, which is V'ata Tatava. The Rebbe Rashab has a V'ata Tatava in Ayin Tes. The Friedrich Rebbe made it into V'kibel Ayudim. The Rebbe made it back into V'ata Tatava. And the Maimir is about a Rebbe, a Mordechai, a Rebbe. But in the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimir, the tone of the Maimir is about Mesiras Nefesh. Our Rebbe's Maimir is about Mashiach and about Amunah. The Friedrich is about Mesiras Nefesh. So the Maimir is dominated by the Moshel, with the Medrash, that the Mordechai gathered together the children, and he learned with them Torah. Even though Haman had made a Gzeda, they're not allowed to gather in large groups, they're not allowed to teach Torah, they could have gotten killed for that. And when Mordechai saw Haman coming, he told the children, run away, because Haman is going to kill you. And the children said to him, Anu itach, bein l'chaim bein l'mavis, we're staying. If Haman's going to kill you, he's going to kill us too. So that's the Maimeh talks about this idea. But there's the famous Medrash that Haman was walking in the street, and Mordechai saw 3 children coming out of the Cheder, and he asked the first child, what did you just learn in Cheder? And the child answered, Al tir mipachat piseim u'mishoyt Hashem kisavei. And then he asked the second child, and what did you learn in Cheder? And he said, I learned in Cheder, utzuveitza v'sufa daber dava v'layakon k'manuel. And then the third child came in Cheder, and Mordechai asked him, what did you learn in Cheder? And I learned v'ad zikna nihu v'ad tzei v'ani espel v'ani asisi v'ani asov v'ani esbev v'maleit. You know, that third pasuk, no one knows the words are too funny. It's hard words. It means when the Yidden are going to be very, very old. That means now. We're 3,300 years old. The Abisha says, you're still going to be my people, and I'm still going to worry about you, and I'm still going to take care of you, and I'm going to hold you, and I'm going to keep you, and I'm going to save you, and I'm going to bring Mashiach. So the Mordechai speaks to these 3 children, and coincidentally, that's what they learned in Cheder. Al Tira, Onutzu Eitza, and Vadzikna. Everybody says it at the end of every davening after Aleinu, but that's the source of it. So Haman says to Mordechai, what are you so happy about? You're going to be killed in a few months. So Mordechai answers, Psura Teva Bisrani. The children just told me a good Psura. Yeah. So in that Maimeh, the Friedrich Rebbe talks about Tineke Shel Beis Rabbi, little kids, and Hevel Shem Bechet. You have to understand, the Friedrich Rebbe in Russia was Meisen Nefesh V'Chinuch. Right? The reason they hated him so much, they hated him for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason was because he was not letting them brainwash the children. And there was a Tineke Shel Beis Rabbi, Hevel Shem Bechet. Now, if you are a Rav and you have a Shalom Halacha, are you allowed to give your life to teach a little child Torah? The answer is for sure not. Right? But Rabbi Akiva did it. Rabbi Akiva was killed for teaching children Torah. There's no heter. The Friedrich Rebbe did it, and the Friedrich Rebbe only survived because the Eibishter wanted him to. The Friedrich Rebbe didn't help himself at all. Because sometimes it's called the Shnas HaShmad, the Shas HaShmad, and your Meisen Nefesh for Tashbar. And the Friedrich Rebbe in the Maimeh explains that the victory over Haman came from the little children learning because of Hevel She'ein Be'echet. Children are pure. They have no sin. And there, the Gemara says, Einei Deim Hevel She'ein Be'echet, Lehevel She'yesh Be'echet. You cannot, a Yid davens, we're adults. And we daven, Eibishter prayers, but we know us. We're not perfect. Children have no sin, they're pure. A whole summer we were being brainwashed that we're like amazing. We could win this, save the world. And I remember thinking to my brother, we fight every day on the bus, at home, we make mother crazy. And we were being told by the Rebbe a whole summer. Children's koyach is unbelievable and so on. So one of the events that I remember distinctly, there was a lot of things that happened, and honestly I don't remember them all, and I am not prepared enough to go into the particulars, but there were many rallies. There was actually a rally where the Rebbe wrote that they should say a certain piskum for the Baal Shem Tov, that wherever a Yid goes, he comes there by Ashgacha Pratis to Oisfer Nagavisa Kavona. But what I do remember very distinctly was that the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, the Rebbe asked to see all the children. We went out at the Farbrengen. My father ran home and got us. And he brought us to the Farbrengen, my brother and I, and we went up to the Rebbe. And the way I remember it, the Rebbe gave us wine from his cup. Earlier, the Rebbe gave the wine from a bottle. That's what I read just now in an article. But my father went to get us, so we got wine later. If I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe gave us wine from his becher. My father's father, whose name was Rabbi Paltiel, he died in 1976, Tafshin Lnedבות, was sitting behind the Rebbe. And when we came up to the Rebbe, he got out of his seat, and he walked over to the Rebbe, and he said to the Rebbe in Yiddish, "Das is mein Abbas." These two boys, my father's name is Abba. Das is mein Abbas, my son's children. I think, my brother and I, for both of us, that's our first real, conscious, personal memory with the Rebbe is this. Das is mein Abbas. So a whole summer they're telling us kids how amazing we are. We made rallies and children. And we were thinking, we do Avedas every 5 minutes. We break things, we fight. But they were telling us, you should know, you're koyach. A whole summer like this. There was rallies in Elul, there was rallies in Slichas, there's rallies in Asas Mitzvah. I think the Rebbe said to go to Kesel Maravi. The Rebbe was stood before the war started. I remember this, but I don't remember this because I remember because someone put two and two together. I remember the Rebbe by Tkiyas, and I was very little, and the Rebbe crying out loud for a very long time. I mean, if you've been in seminary, you've heard me tell those stories, but somebody told me it was Lamedalit. I remember standing on a bench, I remember where I was, and hearing the Rebbe cry out loud, like a baby, for a long time. Someone told me it was 10 minutes. This was Rosh Hashanah before this Milchama, before the Yom Kippur War. On the other hand, somebody reminded me and told me, and again, I understand that I don't have a lot of my own personal recollections. It's really what I've sort of felt out. The Rebbe was going to fight this war with Simcha. He was going to fight this war with Simcha. Everything was Simcha. So Rosh Hashanah already, there was a Gavaldik, an unusual Simcha. Rosh Hashanah is usually an earnest day. But the Rebbe is crying. Mitzad Hasheni, there was a Gavaldik Simcha by the Rebbe. Before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe wrote an addendum to a letter that we're going to win the war. The war hadn't even started. So the story, of course, is that the Rebbe came to Shul. So the rumor is, and I wasn't, Mr. Rumor, no one can argue with, but the rumor is the Rebbe came home that night, not Yom Kippur, and he put his foot up on a chair, and his head like this here, and his elbow, he sat, the Rebbe stood a whole night with his foot on a chair and his elbow on his knee like this, and it got close to 10 o'clock. The Rebbe started to make noise, started to move the furniture. She wasn't going to touch the Rebbe, but she wanted the Rebbe to know it's time to go to Shul. And like 9:45, the Rebbe woke up, and he went to Shul. When it came into Shul, Binyamin Klein told the Rebbe that the war started. It was in it was the afternoon. And the Rebbe said to him, Ich weiß. I know, tell me. Like I said to you before, the first few days, and probably more than the first days, it was so bad. It was so bad. The wind was taken out of us, But then it started to turn. I don't know how long it took to turn, but it took a while. And it started to change. Richard Nixon, made an airlift. He sent us weapons because we were unprepared for war. We were unprepared for war because to be prepared, that means by being prepared, we're aggressors. So one of the things that happened is that the next day, the day after Yom Kippur, the Rebbe saw Geshe Jacobson, the father of the Jacobsons, Yossi Jacobson, Simon Jacobson, and he had the newspaper, the Allgemeine Journal, And the Rebbe said to him, Schreib, as if it's ein Gresser and Nisan v'Sheshes Yamim. Write in the paper there'll be big miracles in the 6-day war. And it didn't seem possible. At that point it was so bad. And it actually was. The Nisim in Egypt and in Syria, both fronts, it was not to be believed. Mamish, unbelievable Nisim. But the Gaive that we came after the 6-day war, we still haven't gotten it back. We have not gotten it back still. Anyway, but let me just tell you some things, details. The Rebbe Farbrengen Gimel Tishrei. There's a tape of the Farbrengen. The Farbrengen is printed in the Simchas. The Rebbe edited the Farbrengen. And the Rebbe started Farbrengen, cried emotionally, says, it's a big question how someplace else in the world Yidden are Schlagezach, Yidden are fighting, and we're sitting here in Farbrengen. And the Rebbe said that from Yom Kippur, or every Yom Kippur, you don't say Tachlon, which means that the Eibishter established that this is a time that you don't solve problems by pleading and by confessing for sins. You solve problems by Simcha. So it's a message from the Eibishter that the solution to this situation is Simcha, and that's why we're having a Farbrengen. And the Rebbe said some very powerful things about the positions that the Rebbe spoke at that Farbrengen, how the war is because of the mistakes we made. We, meaning the Israeli government, and if we would only learn lessons, we prevent a lot of things. In that Farbrengen, the Rebbe said a maimer. And you know how to say this. If you want to solve a problem, how do you solve it? You have a problem, how do you solve it? How do you solve a problem? You take your hands and your feet, you pick a shovel and you dig. You want to solve a problem, you solve it through physical action. This is called in Chazal, in Gemara, it's called Amal Maloch. Amal Maloch, if you have a problem, you go to work. You need money, you go to work. If you want to solve a problem, you have to fix it. Your own hands and your own feet. Special people who are in a higher madrega, they got a problem, they can solve it through tefillah. It's called Amal Sich. This is all in the Gemara. Very, very special people can solve problems through Teira. It's called Amal Teira. And the Rebbe said quite a few Maimorim. And you feel when you learn these Maimorim that the Rebbe was using these Maimorim as tools to win the war on a madrega of Teira. In the Maimor that the Rebbe said, Yud Gimel Tishrei, what the Rebbe did was, he played with the Teira. He moved the furniture around. And the bottom line is, he said like this, that Sukkot doesn't start Tezvav Sivan, it starts Yom Kippur. Tezvav Kislev starts Yom Kippur. Tishrei starts Yom Kippur. And he brought an ayah. And what Sukkot? Sukkot is Haluas Hashem Kol Goyim Shabchu Kol Omim Gav Aleinu Chaste. That in the Beis HaMikdash they brought 70 cows to represent the 70 nations. And it says in Chazal, it says in the Gemara, that if Goyim would know what the Beis HaMikdash does for them, especially Sukkot, they would surround the Beis HaMikdash and would not allow it to be destroyed. So the Rebbe deduced, since Sukkot doesn't really start Sukkot, it starts Yud Aleph Tishrei, and the Rebbe, based on the Rebbe's interesting way of moving around the furniture, so the Haluas Hashem Kol Goyim started Yom Kippur. So if the Haluas Hashem Kol Goyim started Yom Kippur, so the Rebbe made this point, the Malachim, Lamaila of the Goyim, are mispalel for the success of Yidden, and this affects the Goyim that here in this world they should help and protect the Jewish people. The Rebbe said it in the Maimir. You could look inside and see it, and you sort of feel like the Rebbe was using Torah. The Rebbe's a balabas over the Torah. Not, it's a special thing. You use the Torah to paskin a new Metzias in the world. The Rebbe used the Torah to move Sukkot back 4 days. He had good explanations, but the Rosh Yeshivas are going to have a problem with it. You don't put up a sukkah, you don't sit in the sukkah Yud Aleph Tishrei, but whatever, however the Rebbe worked it out. So the Halus, the Goyim starts, so the Goyim have to help us. The Malachim of the Goyim already paskin, you didn't have to have brachas v'atzlochas. And the Gashmizik Goyim that live from those Malachim are for sure helping them. That was in that Ma'amir. Then you have to understand, this was the first. You have to understand that the Rebbe did not Farbrengen the sukkah anymore. If you were in my seminary class, you heard these drushes already, that to the first 20 years of the Rebbe's Nesias, the Rebbe Farbrengen Sukkot 3 or 4 times. The second day Sukkot, Shabbat Chalamayit Sukkot, there was a Sukkot during one of the nights of Sukkot, I thought there was a 4th Farbrengen. But it stopped Laman Aleph. He says, the Rebbe Marlo broke his leg, and the Rebbe stopped it. So when I was a kid growing up, between Tufshin Lamed and Tufshin Mem, Sukkot Zikron Heights, I hate to say it, was a Sukkot Borough Park. There was nothing going on. But in Lamed Dal, they Farbrengen twice. In Shul. So there was no food. It was just, if the Rebbe came in and Farbrengen, without anything, you can't eat in the house, but then I wanted to Farbrengen the second night of Sukkot, he Farbrengen Shabbos Chalameid Sukkot. And each Farbrengen was dominated by a maimer. And each maimer had a different theme, the way I feel it, that's connected to the war. The maimer of the second night Sukkot was connected to Simcha. He brought a pasuk. What's the pasuk? A whole fancy explanation of Pichsidus that was Mekache Shmecha, but Mekache Shmecha is not V'yismechu b'cho Yisrael Mekache Shmecha, Yismechu. Then Shabbos Chalamoid was another maimer, and in that maimer the Rebbe spoke about mitzvahs, maisias, actions, how actions touch atzmos, a ganze Geschäft. But there's a story, and again, remember, I was only 8, I don't remember these stories from then. This is what I sort of read, and everyone's talking about it. It's 50 years since the war. I don't know if in your sukkah they talked about it, but everyone is talking about this whole time. A group of Chassidim went into the Rebbe with a pidyon nefesh for the war. It was a terrible war. Hundreds of Israelis were killed, hundreds, and the numbers of ptsuim, wounded, is anashir. And they went to the Rebbe, and they walked into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe got upset at them. And you want to disturb me? I'm holding on by Simchas Yom Tif. And the Rebbe took an approach which, not only practically, but halachically has no place. The Rebbe said, we're going to win this war with Simcha. You know that there's a Moed in the Kamaise. Have you heard of Reb Moshe Feinstein? You've heard of this person, Reb Moshe Feinstein? When I was growing up, he was called Reb Moshe. He didn't have a last name. Reb Moshe. Reb Moshe knew the whole Torah like you know how many fingers you have. He was not just the Pesach of, he was the Pesach of the whole world. He passed in all the hard shilas, Reb Moshe Feinstein. Reb Moshe was a Misnagi, he was Litvak. He had a very deep respect for the Rebbe. He was the head of what was called Igod HaRabbanim, Agudas HaRabbanim. And they wanted to be Gezer Tainus. They wanted to make a fast, which is what they have to do. You're allowed to fast on Shabbos. The secretary, the Igod HaRabbanim, was a Lubavitcher younger man. His name is Levine. If you heard last week's gem, you saw his eyes a white beard. His name was Young Bacher. And the Rebbe said, we're not making fast, we're going to win the war with Simcha. Now you go explain to the Moshe Feinstein, there's no place in Shulchan Aruch winning wars with Simcha. When you have an Eisari, you fast. And the Moshe listened. The Moshe Feinstein listened to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said we're going to win, and he was a Litvak. He didn't understand this Chassidish stuff, but he knew that this is what the Rebbe wants. It's such a gracekeit. He was older than the Rebbe a little bit, but he listened. They didn't make the fast. The Rebbe, we're going to win the war with Simcha. And the Rebbe got so upset when they gave him the pidyon. The Rebbe said, I'm not taking it. Take it to the oil. Right now, by me is Simcha, I'm at no sadness. And the Rebbe, there's a Farbrengen. We don't even have the Farbrengen, there's a Maimer. And there's a Sikha before, Sikha after. If you look in the Hanoch, it's a few lines. The Rebbe went on and on and on, bawling us out. Where's your Simcha? Where's your Simcha? The Rebbe says, anybody here from Atvotsk? Anybody here from Paltiel? Anyone from the old country, Chassidish Yidden? Teach the Bachim how you're supposed to look in Sukkot. There's a war in Israel, people are dying. And the Rebbe was so not happy that we're not besimcha. And at some point we got the message that it's on us to be b'shelach. That there was a vart yemalt. Ma'ala ha'aretz Deis Hashem, right? Ma'ala ha'aretz Deis Hashem k'mayim liyom echasem, right? You know that pasuk? Where's that pasuk? It's the pasuk in Rambam, right? It's in Yeshayahu. Yeah, but Lubavitch is, listen, the girls maybe know the Yeshayahu. The boys know it from Rambam. So the Rebbe said, Molo ha'aretz Farbrengen zesavaya. They wanted to Farbrengen non-stop. It should be b'simcha a lot. The Rebbe said, we're going to win this war with Simcha. And the Rebbe himself, when the Israelis came here, Simchas Torah, I'll get to this soon, they expected to walk in over here and see what they saw in every other community. Everyone's depressed. And 770 was electric with joy. They couldn't believe it. It was the Rebbe's fault. The Rebbe, they were going to win this war with Simcha, and the Rebbe took a position of Simcha, and he forced us to be as crazy as he was. You know, the Bechama mentioned Starben, and what's the Eitze? It's only a Rebbe, forget about all the koiches, has that much amunah, Pashat. How much betachan in amunah that Simcha has a koyach. You know, when you have a tzara, you cry. You open the Baran Kodesh, you say Tilm, you give tzedakah. You know, Simcha, to solve a problem with Simcha. And the Rebbe's approach was, we're going to win this war with Simcha. And the Rebbe had to convince us that we should sort of conform to his attitude, that the way you fight this war is not by saying Tillim, and not by crying, and not by fasting, but by Simcha. This was one Farbrengen.
Is this the Simcha? Is this the Simcha b'Torah?
The Simcha Torah I spoke many times. Someone was walking home from Shul today. Someone told me Simcha Torah. He told me a different Simcha. The Simcha Torah that I know, but there's more, is Teitzei Memches. This is 14 years before, almost 15 years earlier. But the idea, there's a mice with the Mitzvah Rebbe. You know that? There's a Meshugah and a mice with the Mitzvah Rebbe. It's a crazy story. The Mitzvah Rebbe was a very interesting man. Nobody understands how great the Mitzvah Rebbe was. You could almost get the impression from the Rabbi that the Mitzvah Rebbe was greater than the Alter Rebbe. Hate the Mitzvah Rebbe gives. But the Mitzvah Rebbe did in Yonim, in Avodah, that no other Rebbe did, because they're weird. The Mitzvah Rebbe had a full orchestra and choir on staff. He paid them. Orchestra, many musicians, and many chazonim. They were young guys when they worked with the Mitzvah Rebbe. They became the most famous chazonim in Russia later. And as younger light, they were part of what's called the Mitzvah Rebbe's Kapelya. And the Mitzvah would call them in, and they would compose songs, and they would sing. It was a lot of money, and the Chassidim were very poor. But the Mitzvah Rebbe Gehata Ninyan, from this Kapelya, a lot of the Chabad Nugun that we have from the Kapelya, we don't even know which Nugun come from the Kapelya. They were not necessarily Chassidim. They were musicians and singers, and the Mitzvah Rebbe had them on staff. He paid them. But that's not the Mitzvah Rebbe had cavalry, had horses. And the Chassidim used to do acrobatics, and he would stand and watch. Now, what kind of Yiddishkeit is that? The Mitzvah Rebbe, somehow this was very holy. So one day the Mitzvah Rebbe asked they should do maneuvers. So the guys got on their horses. Amongst the Chassidim who participated, and this was his son, the Reb Nochem. And the Mitzvah Rebbe stood on his porch, and he encouraged the Chassidim to be Rebbe Simcha. And the horses were doing their thing, and someone came over to the Mitzvah Rebbe, and they told him that Reb Nochem fell, and the horse trampled on him. And he's a goysis, he's dying. The guy lived till 90-something years old, this Nechem. So the Mitzvah Rebbe said, the Chassidim should be more Simcha. And they couldn't understand. So they came to him a second time. He says, in case you didn't get the message, if you want to say goodbye, you know, now's a good time. And with noch Simcha. And they kept on coming, giving him bad basudas, and his answer was, and then all of a sudden the basudas changed. He stood there till his son recovered. In other words, a maisip, like the Rebbe said, a maisip have an actual story. They have one of our Rabbeim. And the Mitzvah Rebbe said later that he saw that his son's life was in danger, and he decided that he's going to save his life with Simcha, and he did it with Paltiel. This is story to the Kutta de Burim. So the Rebbe is going to fight a war with Simcha. What are we? We're nothing, you know. We have to just follow. We have to believe him. But it was very hard then. I mean, when you were 8 years old, everything was easy. But if you knew what's going on at the show, especially if you were an Israeli, and the Rebbe says, Simcha, don't think about it, everything will be good. It's the Rebbe. It's the Rebbe, you know. Then the Shabbos was weiter, Farbrengen. Farbrengen of Shabbos was again a Maimer. And the Rebbe spoke about the value of mitzvahs, and especially Esrig, and the Rebbe proved, up in Nigle, it's a Maimer Chassidus, the whole Maimer, there's Nigle, that Esrig and Sukkah are holier than any other physical mitzvah. More than tzitzis, and maybe even more than tefillin. It was very interesting how the Rebbe uses the Torah to make a point. And what I feel, I'm sitting with you, and I'm trying to share with you this piece of history, because I think it's the right thing to do. I think we should have this Farbrengen. And one of the things we should talk about is this words. The Rebbe had 2 points: Simcha and Mivtzoyim. That's how I felt. When you learn these two Maimarim, and the Maimarim before and after, how do you win the war? Simcha, and in other words, Simcha, Poshet, be positive, and mitzvahs. They ran around shaking lulav with people. The Anash, the Lubavitch Chassidim, were going to the front. And going to the front was very dangerous. And the military would not let them. But if you understood the Rebbe's respect then in Eretz Yisrael, sooner or later you'd find some offers. They would say, Chabad, any place they want to go, they could go. My wife told me a story that she read in one of the magazines now. All the magazines are full of this. that there was a Lubavitcher young man who was some kind of an officer in the Israeli army. His name is Farbrengen. Farbrengen, I think his name is. And he was not in touch with his wife like for a few months. And somehow he got an esrik. And he called all of his members of his platoon. They were by a tank in the desert, in the Negev. And they were killing Israelis like ducks. And he made them all shake the lulav. Then a distance was another tank, and he called the mafaked and said, "Bring all your chavet to shake lulav." He said, "Are you nuts?" He says, "They're going to kill us in a few minutes. In a few minutes we're going to die." He says, "Might as well die doing a mitzvah." And they argued. So the guy came and he brought his whole platoon, and they shook lulav, and as they're shaking lulav, their tank was blown up. So this mafaked, who wasn't even from, said, "I am your superior officer. I'm higher ranked than you. I need a lulav and Esther. Give it to me. I'm a military order." And this guy ran around all over, hanging people in the middle of lulav. He kept the Esther in his pocket for months. Way after the war, the Esther was shriveled up. He wouldn't let go of it. There's mice like this. So if you learn the Maimorim, the way I understand it, this is just my feeling, and I'm reading it now, 50 years after the fact. In one of the Maimorim, the Rebbe says the answer is Simcha. My mitzvah, mitzvahs. You do a mitzvah with a yid. You know, in the 6-day war, it was tefillin. You know that, right? The Rebbe said, "V'ro kol ami ha'aretz." You hear the tapes. Kishem Hashem nikra lecha v'yoru mimeka. And the Israelis were saying that the Arabs were running away from them before they even got there. They were running away from phantoms. In the 6-day war, the Arabs left their positions before they were even attacked. And they said that they saw mirages. They saw big armies coming towards them. The Pasha did not exist. So in the 6-day war, Mitzvah film. And this was lulav. You shakal lulav. Now, what's the big deal? Apparently, Hashem really exists. In case you didn't know, Hashem really gave the Torah, and the Torah is really holy and really important. And Hashem really gave the mitzvahs. And Hashem really says that in the week of Sukkot, when you shake a lulav, the world turns upside down.
Isn't there a simcha where the lulav is like the rifle and the bullet?
It's a medrash. It's a medrash.
So this maybe has to do with the war.
Yeah, right, but that's a different fetch. And I'll explain to you what that is. And this is one of the tragedies of this war. The medrash says when two sides fight, how do you know who won? The one who makes a parade. And you know that after the Yom Kippur war, they made a parade and we didn't. It's so nuts. So what do you do in the parade? You march with your weapons. So you have a spear and you have a sword and you have, I don't know what the grenade is, but there's a medrash that says that the lulav and the esrig and the dasim and the aravis are weapons. And that's where the expression Dida Notzach comes from Sukkot. Anan nitzuchaya. No, the expression Dida Notzach, Anan nitzuchaya, we were victorious, is going back to Yom Kippur. That how do we know we won the judgment of Yom Kippur? Because on Sukkot we go Dida Notzach. And by the way, for those of you who are really into the Schwarze Pintelach, during the Pashas HaSforim, I wasn't in New York, I was in California. There was a magazine that came out yet called Beis Chayenu. I think it was already coming out. One day in Tavis, Memvav, 86. 1 year before we won the trial, the Rebbe walked out of 770 carrying his lulav. And there's a picture of the Rebbe carrying lulav mitten Tavis. Now what were they thinking? I don't know what to tell you what they were thinking. The Rebbe forgot what time of year it was, you understand? It was Poshet Dida Notzach. Carrying a lulav means Dida Notzach, you understand? But this was a different, so what you're saying is true, and I'm explaining to you how. It's takenegeh to Sukkot. But then a Yid that shakes a lulav, and they were lining up to shake lulav. There was a sincerity. It wasn't just a superstition. The Rebbe said, you gotta listen. The Rebbe said, you have to listen. I'm really speaking from the Maimorim. It seems, I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel when you learn the Maimorim of that period, with some of the Maimorim you could feel the war. Today I learned the Maimer for Shabbos B'Reishis. And yesterday I learned for Simchas Teda. Simchas Teda Maimer, you don't feel the war at all. Mamish, you don't feel the war. Like you almost feel like when the Rebbe is saying the Maimer, the Melchama is already ending. Shabbos B'Reishis, the Rebbe mentions the war a little bit.
When does it actually end?
I think it was the war started on Shabbos, Yom Kippur. I Googled. So if Wikipedia is not lying, it ended on Thursday, Chof Tes Tishrei.
After Shas B'Reishis.
Before Shas B'Reishis. No, before Shabbos Nech. Shas B'Reishis, Simchas Torah was Friday. Simchas Torah was Friday. So there was a Maimah Simchas Torah and 2 Maimorim Shabbos B'Reishis. And then Noach, when I said 7 Maimorim, I'm including Noach. 7 Maimorim in 20 days, that's an awful lot of Maimorim. 7 Maimorim in 20 days. That's on average 10 Maimorim a month, which is, if you keep that rate going, it's 120 Maimorim a year, which forget about it. It was like a packed Zeit, you know. So let me just finish the story from what I understand it. So let me start with a few. I just want to share this with you because I feel like I should. I feel like I said, you called me to Farbrengen, and what am I supposed to talk about? I mean, we have the same. I Farbrengen here before. The drushes, the official drushes you've heard. I wanted to say something a little bit different and timely because I feel it's important that we should share this. Shmini Atzeres by night was a kofis. And the way HaKafas worked in 770, as you know, as I explained it to you years ago when you were in school, the Rebbe got the first HaKafa, the Rebbe got the last HaKafa. The middle 7 HaKafas, the Rebbe stood in the front, and the people danced in the middle. The HaKafa would start when the Rebbe turned around to face the crowd, and the HaKafa finished when the Rebbe turned back to face the wall. That's how the kafas went. Now, I don't have a siddur. If there's a siddur handy, the fourth hakafa, Shmini Atzeres by night, the Rebbe turns around, and normally when the Rebbe would turn around, the singing would start. But the Rebbe turns around holding his siddur. The Rebbe turns around, holding a siddur, and he starts to read the fourth hakafa. Now, as you know, the fourth hakafa, you have the big words, right? So the first hakafa is Ona Mashiach. The second hakafa starts with a dalid, David Meisharim. The third hakafa starts with a zayin, Zach v'Yoshar. The fourth hakafa starts with a yud, Yodea Machshav v'Seshiano, Kabe v'No, Atzlichano. But after you read the big words, there's a bunch of small words, and the small words you say quietly. Yodea Machshav, and then you read words, and the way those words work, if you look at them, you'll see. It's from a few different places. It's from Mitzvah, every place you have in Torah, things divided up into 7. So each hakafa you read one of them. He turns on holding his siddur and he starts to read out loud the small type of the fourth hakafa, which nobody ever sings out loud. And the Rebbe sings it with the niggin of the old Haderes Ve'emunah. So the Rebbe started to sing. I'm going to read it to you inside. So the Rebbe, here we are. So the Rebbe starts to sing with the old tune of Haderes Ve'emunah. Mitzvah Hashem ba, and again, I don't remember this. I was there, but I don't remember. Mitzvah Hashem ba, Rameir Aseinoyim Koil Adeshem Shever Aroth. I was singing with the old Haderes Ve'emunah. Vayeshaver Adeshem Etzal Zehalvonin. Vayeshaver Adeshem Vayarkidem Kema Yegelavonim. They were saying the whole thing with the old tune of the Haderes Ve'emunah that they would sing by the Rebbe 770. The last words are Ni'imes B'mincha Netzach. Ni'imes B'mincha Netzach means Ni'imes pleasantness from the Eibishter's right side, and Netzach victory. So people who remember it say that when the Rebbe sang the whole thing with this tune, and when he said the 3 words, he shouted it like a roar. Ni'imes B'mincha Netzach. I don't know how it sounded, but people described the Rebbe roaring. It was a roar. A geshrei azah. This was Shmini Atzeres. Now the Seder was Azoy, and this even I remember, the Israeli delegation to the United Nations here in New York are Israelis. Of course they're all from Yidden, they all keep Shabbos, they all keep kosher, they all keep Taras HaMishpacha, right? They all keep all the mitzvahs, yeah? But Simchas Torah is not Yom Tov for them, because they're Israelis. And many of them, their wives are in Eretz Yisrael, so they're even in Chutz La'aretz, so they keep one day Yom Tov. So there was a Seder that the Israeli delegation to the United Nations would come to 770 Simchas Torah every year. The whole delegation, 100 people. And I think there were women and went to the Weibishol. And they would bring him too close to the Rebbe. They gave him covet. And they got the second hakafa. I remember as a kid, they got the second HaKofa. The second HaKofa was the Israelis. They have their tray, they hold the Sefer Torah above their heads. That's how they would dance. So the second HaKofa, Simchas Torah, belonged to the Israeli delegation. Every year, Simchas Torah. And it was a covet for them, and it was a covet for the Rebbe too. And as kids, one of the big temptations was to go outside to see the limousines. There's a whole street of limousines. The problem was, if you went to the limousines, you lost your place for the HaKofas. The HaKofa Simchas Torah starts 1 o'clock in the morning, so they came late. And they always went over came to the front of the shul, and the heads of delegations would go over to the Rebbe and say Good Yom Tif and exchange words. Normally it was a formality, but that year it was an argument. How old was the war? Simchas Torah is Friday. So the war was 2 weeks minus a day old. The war started on Shabbos, Yud, and Matzah Simchas Torah. The day of Simchas Torah is going to be Vaita Shabbos, 2 weeks. By this the tide of war had turned, and it's known that the Rebbe said to the men who approached him, they must take Damascus. The Rebbe said, I'm giving a pkud, I'm giving a command as a general of them in Damascus. They were so close to Damascus. They said they don't want to take Damascus because Russia threatened. It was really it was a Cold War. America was supporting Israel, and the Arabs were supported by the Russians, by the Soviets. And the Rebbe said the Soviets are threatening, but it's bluff. They will not get involved. And the Israeli government was afraid. The Russians said that if they take Damascus, they're going to join on the Arab side. They didn't listen to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, take Damascus for 1 hour. The Rebbe said, take Damascus for 1 hour. Because the Rebbe held that if you'll embarrass them, you'll take their capital. They were so close to Damascus. They were so close to Cairo. And the Rebbe argued with them. And the Rebbe said, I give up pkuda, command. Go back and tell them that I'm commanding them, as the general, it was the general of the army, to take Damascus. They argued with them. And that's what they repeated what happened. The first thing that they said was they couldn't believe the Simcha 770. They knew how the Jewish world was reacting to this war. It was a terrible war. And they knew that Chabad is not, they love Eretz Yisrael. We love Jews. It's a minig. It means that it is a minig. But Lib Yidden. And Eretz Yisrael was in a very bad Ma'amid HaMatziv, and they expected to come to 770 and to find an ambivalent mood, a half Simchas Torah. And it was a Simchas Torah and a half who stood them. They couldn't believe the joy. There's a story that David Edelman al-Hasham tells. So I'll share it with you now also about this same meeting, Yom Kippur, Simchas Torah by the HaKofa. That when they went over to the Rebbe said to them, loud enough for him to hear, he was nearby, the problem with the Israeli army is that the general staff is too old. Old people have old ideas, and the world changes. You need young people with new ideas. So the Rebbe said to them, the problem with the Israeli military is that the leadership, the people making the decisions, are old. They're fossils. They don't have any new ideas. They're creativity. So he tells the Rebbe, we know. And we've already replaced 40% of our general staff. It's a lot. 4 out of 10 people lost their jobs and they replaced them with younger officers. And the Rebbe says loud, not enough! And he turns around and he swings his hand across the whole room of 770 and he says, Hoicha van Kol, 80% of my army is under 20. 80% of my army is under 20. 80% of my army is under, it's still true to this day, 80% of my army is under 20. Anyway, but the Rebbe told them when they came over, the first thing the Rebbe said, he spoke in Yiddish, mit schon ausgepeilt an den Zochen Nächten mit den E-Mails wie Mincha Netzach, the Rebbe said. The Rebbe never said I, he said we. We already effected a victory last night with an E-Mails wie Mincha Netzach. When the Israeli delegation came over to the Rebbe, Simchas Torah, the Rebbe explained that what he did the night before by the 4th HaKofa, when the Rebbe roared, the E-Mails wie Mincha Netzach, so the Rebbe told them, mit ausgepeilt an den Zochen Nächten, last night I already took care of this war with the E-Mails wie Mincha Netzach. Now, of course, that year is the year that is Amuna, the French national anthem. It all came together. It was the 4th HaKofa. Simchas Torah now. This is not Shemitah, Simchas Torah.
What do those words mean?
That I already assured a victory for the Jew.
The
Ne'imes means pleasantness. B'mincha, and the Eibishter's right hand. Netzach. Netzach means victory. But Netzach means Nitzach and victory. That's how the Rebbe translated it. So Rebbe turns over the 4th HaKofa, again holding his siddur, And he starts to sing Adar Zamuna with the French national anthem. It's the last nigun that Rebbe taught. The Rebbe taught 14 nigunim. 10 nigunim he taught Simchas Teira, and 3 nigunim he taught on different occasions. 1 nigun he taught the Shabbos after Pesach, Tzavul Chanafshi. 1 nigun he taught by the Pesach, by the Seder, after the Seder, V'hisha Amda. And 1 nigun he taught Yud Beis Tammuz, Asad L'Sudosa. And the 14th nigun was Simchas Teira Lamed Al. They were turned around, holding a Seder, so nobody knew the nigun. The Frenchies, you have to understand, the revolution of the Rebbe in France is one of the most effective revolutions any place in the world. A lot of people will tell you that the most successful place any place in the world is the Sfardim in France. They came from Morocco. Harav Mullah Zimov has literally thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of Paltiel on a guzma. And they would come to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was very makad of them. You want to say, you want a reason to complain about Lubavitch? Here's a reason about Lubavitch. Anybody, listen to this people, anybody who came to the Rebbe from France, all the years, the Rebbe paid half the traveling expenses. Came from England, sorry, make your own way. You came from Italy, make your own way. You came from Belgium, make your own way. You came from France, 50% of the cost. Now, for a lot of people, that was really what allowed them to come. The Rebbe, for the Rebbe, they're so important. The Rebbe spoke in Beis Vayeshev that the Alter Rebbe was afraid of France. And in our generation, France became one of the most important places of a Fatzah Mayonis Chutza. The Rebbe in that Simcha quotes in one of the footnotes, and the Rebbe in Chayamushka told Mitzvah Zima of Allah Shalom, quote, Miram ge'aket und gezeit und ihr wird schneiden. The Rebbetzin said, not the Rebbe said, we plowed and seeded, we mean the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and you're going to reap, you're going to harvest. That's the Rebbe. The Rebbetzin Chayamushka, you don't hear such verta from her often. She said, we lived in France, we planted the seeds, and you're going to harvest, you're going to have aslach. To Mrs. Azimov, Rebbetzin Azimov. Anyway, so the Frenchies of the Gechap that Rebbe singing their national anthem, they were all over the show, they went bananas. I mean, they were crazy to start with. I remember where I was standing when this was happening. I didn't have a very good spot, I was only 8. But I thought they were going to jump and hit the ceiling. I mean, couldn't believe it. Now, some people I heard that Rebbe sang only a few stanzas. I read that Rebbe sang the whole nigun. I don't know, but the Rebbe taught that there is a munah. Nobody knew it. So the Frenchies had the floor in 770. Most of them were singing the nigun without the words. They knew the tune, they didn't know the words. And the Rebbe wanted to join the tune with the words. And the Rebbe, they came to the front. And the Rebbe turned to the shliach who brought them. And the Rebbe said, all the chaver are here? He said, yeah. They said, no, there's a couple missing. And the Rebbe pointed where they were in the shul, in the middle of a kofis. In the middle of a kofis. The Rebbe asked them, they're all here? The Rebbe wanted them next to him. They're all here? He says, yeah, no, there's one here, one here. The Rebbe made them all come to the front. And the Rebbe wanted them to teach the nigun to the olam. And then Simchas Teira again. So these events came together. So the fact that the night before the Rebbe chose to sing the 4th Hakafa with the tune of the older Berezamun, it's almost like he was setting us up for the fact that the next night he would change the nigun. So these are some of the events that surrounded the Yom Kippur War. Now you must understand, the aftermath of that war is interesting also. Kodem Kol, this, I don't know all the stories, but the Rebbe sent gifts to the soldiers. The Rebbe sent money to the soldiers. The Rebbe did a lot of things very personally to each individual soldier. But the Mitzvahim took off. There was one Mitzvah Tefillin. Mitzvah Tefillin, I was 2 years old, I don't remember. That winter, after the Yom Kippur War, that's when the Rebbe made Mitzvah Tzedakah, a Mitzvah Mezuzah, a Mitzvah Torah, a Mitzvah Bayis Molis Farm, Yad HaChameh. As a child, there were 5 Mitzvahim. Now, it didn't last very long, because the last days of that same year, Lamedala, the Rebbe made Mitzvah Neshek. But for a period, as a child, there were 5 Mitzvahim. It was Tefillin and 4 more. Those Mitzvahim came after the Yom Kippur War. Tefillin, the Rebbe said, right before the 6-day war. These 4 Mitzvahim, there was clearly a reaction to the Milchama. The lessons from this story, and you must understand, I right now, I'm pushed living in those Maimorim. So if you have to teach a Maimir, if you ever taught a Maimir, you can't just learn it once. You learn it once, you learn it twice, you learn it 3 times. So I'm into these Maimorim. And in some of the Maimorim, you could feel the war. You could feel. The Maimir of Yud Gimel Tishrei, and the 2 Maimorim of Sukkot, the 2nd day Sukkot, Shabbos Chalamed, You could feel the Milchama. You could feel it. In the first one, the Rebbe's approach was, the Goyim are going to help us. You just... The second one, the third Maimed, the takeaway is Simcha. It's not enough that you Mekadesh is Hashem. It's not enough that you make a Kiddush Hashem. Kiddush Hashem is a big deal. You have to do it with Simcha. And then the second one is about mitzvahs, about lulav. Go out into the street. The Rebbe doesn't speak about it in the Maimed and that signet, but mitzvahs connect Yidden to the Eibishter more than anything else. And it heals, and it saves, and it helps, and it's a bracha. So this is, in other words, the Farbrengen aspect of this story that I just told you, the two things you have to take away as Chassidim, we have to take away as Chassidim, is the place of Simcha in our lives. Simcha breaks Gzeiros. And when you have a Gzeira, the last thing you're thinking about is Simcha. And the last thing you want is one of your best friends, maybe try being happy, it may help, because the Rebbe said, don't bother with the Rebbe right now, I got problems. When you have problems, you need the Rebbe more than ever. The answer to the problem is Simcha. And the Rebbe demonstrated it during this war. The Rebbe said, the answer to this war is Simcha. And mitzvahs. You find a Yid, the guy was carrying that esrog a whole winter. By the time that the Israeli general took, he was a mafaked, he was some kind of an officer, it was a lemon, it was a tied little thingy. He wouldn't let go of the esrog. Months after the war, the esrog was in his pocket. Because he saw b'muchesh, soldat get a shakal on esrog, and it saves his life. It saves his life. Bepashtas. There's a lot of unbelievable stories. So this is what I wanted to share with you, to give you a sense of this period. Like I said, the end of it was, at the end, there's no end. The end is Mashiach is going to come take off Mayad Mamish. But the aftermath was that the Rebbe made the 4 Mitzvahim. And the Rebbe, one of the themes that the Rebbe spoke about a lot, and let's not kid ourselves, we're as guilty as anybody else of this. Go'on Yankov. Jewish pride. Never bend your head. Be proud. The Rebbe felt that the problem was we care what the Goy thinks. And the Rebbe was saying, Gaiva. A Yid that's, when it comes to a Goy, has to be about Gaiva. His attitude is, I'm the balabas. And this is a real lesson that applies now. It applies always. A Jew should be proud, not apologetic, to be who he is or she is without any shame. And the Rebbe's position always was, you want the Goy to respect you? Don't apologize. He's going to hate you for that. Be proud. We talk about this in school. Chanukah. The ultimate nitzachon of Lubavitch is when the Reform shuls, from temples, make public Chanukah with no lightings. You know why? Because the whole Reform movement was built on stopping anti-Semitism. How do you stop anti-Semitism? Act as similar to the Goy as possible. Don't stand out. So their biggest fight, they don't like Lubavitch when but the public with no lighting, that's so offensive. It's so getting the Goy to hate you, and then they imitated it. Yiddish, the Rebbe wants you to be proud. Balegaive. Not balegaive that you step in people's heads, but don't bend for anybody. The famous story with the Rebbe, which I just don't know how a human being could have that kind of certitude. The story? It's a mamish, a crazy story with the Rebbe himself. As the Rabbi used to go visit his mother every day for 15 years till she passed away, Tavshachafei. And we'd walk up Kingston. Everybody knew when he goes, 6 o'clock. So all the storekeepers on Kingston from Houston Parkway till would stand in the doorway of their stores, and they would acknowledge each one as he passed. What is now the shul was stores. You understand? There were stores till the corner. I remember when they built the third shul. There were stores. Kingston till Eastern Park was stores. One of those stores was a hat store, and the Rabbi used to buy his hats over there. And the guy would stand at the entrance to the store, and every day they would pass him and tip his hat to him. So the story is that once the Rebbe was walking up Kingston, and he tips his cap to this hat maker who made the hats for all the Lubavitchers. And there was an African-American mailman, a guy, standing on the sidewalk, and the Rebbe gave him a smile that could melt ice. And this hat maker was insulted. I get a tip of the cap and he gets a smile. I made the Rebbe's hat. Anyway, the Rebbe went to see his mother. And the way back, They were still standing in the door, or they came back out. The Rebbe walks up to this man, to this hat maker, who was not happy that he just got a tip of the cap, and to the guy to geschmeichelt. And the Rebbe said, in my entire life, I never bent my head to a non-Jew. I can't tell you how many times I bent my head in the last 5 minutes. In my entire life, I gave him a smile. He didn't do this. To the year that he bent his head. In my entire life, it was a shita, you know. You know, one of the stories that they tell about the Rebbetzin, and it's a true story, I say, it's a crazy story. But it must have been in Berlin. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin were in Berlin when the Nazis came to power. So I think it was in Berlin. Could it have been in France? I don't know how. But the Rebbetzin told the story. That they were the goose stepping, they were marching, the Germans were marching. And they were big anti-Semites, that goes without saying. So the Rebbetzin said to the Rebbe, let's get out of the way. And the Rebbe said, Nein, sollen sie sehen, wie ein Yid geht. No, let them watch how a Jew walks. And every soldier walked around them. Don't try that, by the way. That don't. If you're a Nazi German, you see this, get out of it. But the Rebbetzin walked with him. She walked with her husband. The Rebbe said, Nein. She should have said, you not, you can go yourself. Yeah. The Rebbetzin was there. The Rebbetzin walked with the Rebbe, and every German soldier walked around them. So that's a keichalaki. That's cool. The Rebbe said to the Rebbetzin, let's get out of the way. And the Rebbe said, Nein. It's funny, the Rebbe's mother told the story, a similar story. That when the Rebbe left Russia, he went home to his parents for Yom Tiv. Tishrei Peichas, the Rebbe was in Yekaterinslav. That Simchas Teda, the Rebbe and his father danced every minute, the whole 24 hours. After Yom Tiv, the Rebbe left. And the Rebbe apparently went out through Finland, through Leningrad. You know how far away Yekaterinslav is from Finland? It's probably 2,000 miles. It's a very big distance. And they went by train. So the Rebbe's father accompanied the Rebbe a certain distance and he went back. The Rebbe's mother accompanied him till the border, till the Finnish border, till the top. I think the Finnish border. I could be wrong, but I think it's the Finnish border. So you're on a train for so many hours, you got to daven. The Rebbe stood up and he put on his tefillin, and the Rebbe's mother swallowed her tongue. In Russia, in 1927, to get up on a train and put on tefillin, it was an act of suicide. And the Rebbe's mother watches her son stand up and put on tefillin till the guys in Pfeifen. A bunch of Russian goyim got up and made a mechitza around the Rebbe and stood the entire time that he davened. The people short pushing shouldn't see what he's doing. And the Rebbe finished davening, he took off his tefillin, they sat back down. That's a cool story. Anyway, now you asked the question, and I don't have a good answer. It's unfortunate. What's unfortunate, I mean, the difficulties of Zman Simchaseinu, when you're not able to dance, you're just watching the dancing. I'm a man. My problem is that I'm too lazy to show up to the dance because I'm old and have excuses. What's my feeling for bringing here. It's terrible. I'm left dancing. I could dance. Why don't I dance? Because I'm an old, you know what. My wife says, don't tell you an alter fed. I said, why not? Because it's not true. But no, it's not good for the kids to hear. Okay, so there's the old Yiddish expression, Zayin Megman ab Zogin Toiminish. You can be whatever you want, just don't tell anybody. You know? So I don't know. I really don't know. Let me say this to you, Tachlero. Bechlal Yiddishkeit is avoida. There's no automatic. The dancing helps, you know. When it comes to Yom Neroyim, you do tshuva because the people around you are doing tshuva. You do tshuva. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, and you have to make the Eibush into a melech, of course, there's an environment, there's a mood, there's a shul, there's a community, there's people, there's an energy, but there's an avodah. Simcha is an avodah just like Kabbalah Salachas is an avodah, and just like tshuva is an avodah. This is Man Simchaseinu. I'm going to tell you a story, but I'll say it without a name, just because every time I say a name, I get into so much trouble, you have no idea. A Yid went into the Rebbe with his wife on Sukkot. They had just suffered a catastrophic loss, a personal loss, a catastrophic loss. And the Rebbe Yom Tif, Tishrei time, had Yechidus Erev Shabbos, had Yechidus Matzah Shabbos, had Yechidus Chayil HaMoed. Whenever there was a free minute, Rebbe saw people. Because there were so many guests, there was no way for Rebbe just to see them in his regular schedule. So during Tishrei, whenever there was a moment, the Rebbe saw people. Now the Rebbe's room in 770 was built in 1937. It wasn't built in 2014, which means there's real insulation. The walls of 770 are probably made from plaster brick, I'm going to guess. They're very thick. No, but the Rebbe talks in the room, you don't hear. If you could hear the Rebbe outside his room, the Rebbe is talking very loud. And the Rebbe is quite aware that the Bacham outside want to hear everything going on behind the doors. So there was an unwritten rule that if the Rebbe raises his voice and you could hear what he's saying, the Rebbe allows you to listen. Let me give us some. The Bachim, you understand? The Rebbe was in his room in Yechidus. And even if the Rebbe talked in a regular voice, outside the door you couldn't hear. Unless the Rebbe raised his voice. In other words, the Rebbe was screaming. If the Rebbe raised his voice and you could hear, it was a simon. You didn't have to do this. You know, the Rebbe was very, very aware that he was being heard, eavesdropped on, you know. They went into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to this woman, "Du sterst Simchas Yom Tov." The woman came into the Rebbe and she was beside herself. And she made sure the Rebbe knew, the Rebbe's her Rebbe, the Rebbe's her father, the Rebbe's her everything. And the Rebbe doesn't say, "Oh, you come, I give you a hug," you know, empathetic. You're disturbing Simchas Yom Tov. And she says, "I'm talking about Simchas Yom Tov. I just had this, I just lost my daughter." And the Rebbe argued with her for a while. She's saying, "How can I be b'simcha?" The Rebbe is saying, "The Eibush should be b'simcha." They could hear in the Beis Medrash, in the Zal, clearly what the Rebbe was saying. Du sterst, you have to be b'simcha. Zman Simcha Seinu. Simcha by the Rebbe, from the minute Yom Kippur ended, from Napoleon's march, when the Rebbe turned around after Maidav and he screamed Good Yom Tov, it came out of his pores. The Simcha by the Rebbe wasn't only when he swung his hands, the way he walked, his face. The Rebbe was happy from the moment Yom Kippur ended until Shabbos Bereshis, and then the Rebbe pushed it off till Zayin. You know, he then made Sukkot into 3 weeks till Zayin Cheshvan. The Rebbe, he spun the Torah, and Zman Simcha Seder was 3 weeks. Well, they're doing the Machnach Rebbe. The Rebbe gave a koyach for it. But the point is, Simcha is an avodah. In other words, maybe the answer to your question, don't feed off the men. I mean, listen, the tradition is, Simchas Beit here is not a tradition. It's a new idea. But men went to shul, women went to shul. The men danced, the women watched. This was their participation in the Hakafis. A lot of ladies will say, "You watch my husband get shikr, but not too shikr. You know, interesting, but not crazy." So that makes them happy. Simcha is an avodah on you, and this is the season for it. I'm not answering your question because I don't have an answer. Because I appreciate. I mean, listen. The biggest time the women have is the men go off and have fun. I sit in my kitchen and cook them food. What's this? It's a real thing. In the olden days, and I don't like to say the good old days, the good old days are right now, even though there's such a Lamas Stadium, there were many women in Crown Heights who slaved, mamich, a whole Tishrei. They didn't feed their own children. They fed their children, and all of their siblings' children who were on Shlichus, and all the people they brought with them to the Rebbe, 3 meals a day, atog nach atog nach atog. They would sneak out. You know when there was a moment for them to sneak out? Simchas Torah morning. Everyone's sleeping. And these balabostas got up early and they went to 770. They woke up at 10 o'clock, the room was 3/4 empty downstairs. And this was their moment. I don't know how official it was. I never saw this. I was never there. But they say when the Rebbe walked in 10 o'clock in the Moisem Chas Torah, the room was 3/4 empty. And the Rebbe put on a show. Women went, and then they went home. Why? Got to feed them again. But they found a way. So that's part of it. It's not just that you can dance. You're almost serving the people. They have all the fun, and they need energy to feed their tanks, so they can stay up all night and dance. And all you're doing is cooking. It's an avodah. In other words, I don't have a good answer for you. Okay, fine. But what I'm trying to say to you is, Simcha is a job. It's a job b'chlal. Every day a Yid has an avodah to be b'simcha. And it's not easy. But the reward for Simcha, I hope I don't have to tell you the reward for Simcha. Nobody's situation ever became better by being miserable. Nobody's situation ever became worse by being happy. But their ability to live and do what they have to do became exponentially better. It's avoided. I'm right that Simcha is avoided. It's a big job. And a big avoided gedolei calls it. It means two things. It's hard and important. So I don't know. They did make years ago one night for the girls to dance indoors. I don't know if they still do it. They don't do it. The girls go. They don't go. It's high school kids. I don't know, whatever it's for. But find a way to make Zman Simcha Seinu yours. It doesn't necessarily have to mean all night, every night. But it can be such a Farbrengen. Sit with girls, get rid of the guy, and sit and sing and Farbrengen, create an energy of Simcha. It's a job. It's a job. And if standing in Kingston and watching the men dance works for you, adarabah. But if it doesn't, don't say I'm missing out. Find another way of making it happen for you. This is the time. This is the time. And the Rebbe was over the top about this. The Rebbe was a Chassidish Rebbe, you know. He's not the first Chassidish Rebbe. But he is this may sound very self-serving, he was the only real Chassidish Rebbe after the Holocaust. I mean, the Rebbe created the post-Holocaust Chassidus. He really did. I don't think he created it for Lubavitch. Anybody who wants the Shaykhs to Chassidus, Babev, Belz, Ger, Satmer, Vishnitz, the Rebbe created the way to be a chassid today. And the most basic tool is Simcha. And it's not limited to the 5 nights of HaShoeva. Life has to, it's a job of a Yid, it's a job of a chassid to be b'simcha. Do whatever it takes. So I'm not answering you. I'm just saying, the good old story. You're right, but you're not right. In other words, it's harder for you, undoubtedly, but figure out a way of doing it. I don't know if it's helping you at all, but this is the best I got. This is all I got. Simcha is a job. Simcha is an avodah on each person. And the beginning of Simcha is 2 midas. The beginning of Simcha is bittul, forgetting about yourself. And the beginning of Simcha is bitachon. What am I happy about? I live in the world. There's a video. A guy came to Rabbi, a Paltiel chassid. And apparently this man was going through some kind of a hardship. He had some kind of difficulties. And Dallas was pointed out. Dallas was very powerful. The one thing about Dallas was open. People came to the Rebbe by Dallas and they say, can I talk to you? He said, you can talk, but remember there's 100 people listening in. You're welcome to whatever you want, but I can't promise you privacy, He walked up to the Rebbe by Dallas and apparently he was preached Brachen. And he told the Rebbe in Yiddish, Ich habe gehört, dass der Lubavitcher Rebbe kocht sich stark in Simcha. He tells the Rebbe in Yiddish, I heard that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is very into Simcha. And the Rebbe says, yeah, but the Rebbe's yeah was like, forgive me, yeah, stupid, of course. Like what are you talking about? So he tells the Rebbe finvus. From what? And he wasn't being cynical. That's what he felt. In other words, that Yid was going through whatever he was going through, and he has the Shaykhs to Chassidus. The Rebbe, maybe he's not his Rebbe, but he's a Rebbe, and the Rebbe gives chayes to everybody, and he says to the Rebbe, how am I supposed to do that? And the Rebbe says, "Vos heist? Bist du Yid? What do you mean you're Jewish?" Now, a lot of people will tell you the worst thing about their life is that they're Jewish. The Rebbe doesn't see it that way. Vos heist? Bist du Yid? It's an avodah. It's a job to be b'simcha. A Lubavitcher chassid has an obligation to be so happy that the people around them are happy, and it's a much better avodah than crying all day long. Trust me. I tried that. You feel very busy, you feel very holy, and you're like a swollen blah. You're just so busy with yourself. It's a seed. Simcha allows you to forget about yourself a little, and it just changes you. Every chassid's goal is to become a Simcha person. It's a trademark of a chassid. And when a chassid's down, the chassid's slipping. And you don't want the chassid to slip, So it's a job. But this is man Simcha Seinu. The Medrash says that Tishrei is a Yom Tif that are all the big inyanim in a called an Eifen Klali. In other words, Tishrei, it's the Rebbe's famous mashal. You go to a market and you shop for wares, and then you come home, you pack from the pack, you unpack your wares, and you have it for the whole year. So the Medrash says that it's a Chodesh Klal, it's a general month, Muspa Bakoil, it's sated, it's satiated with all good midas, and the Medrash says what you have in it. You have Malchus, you have Tshuva, and you have Panasa, and you have Simcha. This is the season for Simcha al Kol Hashana Kula. In other words, you do the avodah of Simcha now, they should be able to be with Simcha a whole year. And if I may say so, I mean, I got a Chabechet HaTochter of the Chasna Haben. Mit Hashem we should have Simchas b'Peil Mamish. It should be easy to be with Simcha. You go to your own wedding, it's not so hard. No, it's not so hard. It's not so hard. Yeah. Okay. L'chaim Kinderlach, l'chaim. No.
What are your thoughts on the pictures or whatever that are taken for
the Beskiho? It's a chutzpah she'en kamayu. And I own everyone I get my hands on. This picture that were taken, they're not through the kiyah, they're through the window. Someone, they're through the window. The window is open and someone climbed and took pictures. There's a picture of the Rebbe standing without a hat, holding a piece of paper, and he's looking down. The Rebbe's sitting in a chair in the Rebbe's room, reading something. The Rebbe gave her a paper, and someone took the picture. The Rebbetzin used to go visit her mother 3 times a week at least, and when she came to her mother, she went to the Rebbe, and they would talk. Someone took a picture. It's a very interesting picture. The Rebbetzin sitting in a chair, right when you have been in the Rebbe's room. When you walk into, there's a bunch of light switches. Right by the door, under those light switches, there used to be a chair. The Rebbe's gonna walk in, she sat down. The Rebbe is standing above her. He's wearing a kapata, but he's not wearing a hat. And he gave her something to read. And the Rebbe's looking at her read it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's a chutzpah. Wow, it's a chutzpah. But I'm not the chutzpahnik. Someone else, I'll be very happy to have it. I mean, Bechlal, there's a lot of things that there's a big question about whether they should or they shouldn't be. But if someone was mafasam them, I'm not going to not have them, because how could you not? I don't understand. Maybe I don't agree, but it's done. Bechlal by the Rebbe, if the Rebbe didn't want pictures, there wouldn't be pictures. How many stories are the guys went to Yechidus with a tape recorder that came out blank? If the Rebbe didn't want it, it didn't work. It's all. If the Rebbe didn't want it, it didn't work. Okay, a guten Morgen, jüdische Kinderlach. Wir haben richtige Simchas und a guten Jahr und Besuches Tevis. And if you ate a shir, don't forget to make a bracha achrena. And you say, v'zachem v'yem chag esukes hazeh. Okay, a guten Morgen, everybody. A guten Morgen.